Hi everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name's Erica. I work at Halstead, and today I just wanted to show you a little bit about hand stamping, just to give you the basics. I'll do a more detailed hand stamping video later on in the year, but for right now, let's just cover these little things. So when you start at hand stamping, you want to use a brass hammer, and this is a 1 pound brass hammer. And the reason you want to use a brass hammer is that brass will not damage the tip of your stamps. It will actually give in and it'll mar up the brass instead of your stamps. So that's one reason you want to use a brass hammer. Also, you want a weighty one because you're going to strike it and you're going to strike it really hard, so you want the weight behind that hammer. And another reason is that stamping is really hard on your arms and your wrist, and this just kind of bounces off and protects your arm and wrist better using a brass hammer. So there are multiple reasons why you want to get a brass hammer. So also another thing you want to do when you start out is you might want to use tape, and I'll show you why in a minute. If you have tape, go ahead and cut it, because if you pull it and stretch it to try and tear it, you'll damage the line of the tape and it'll get bent and out of shape. Now this is an Impress Art stamping tape, which is what we use here, but you can use other types of tape. All it is a guide when to stamp, and I'll show you how that works. So go ahead and lay your tape across your blank. And we're using a copper blank. So when we start out stamping here, we use copper, and then we gradually make our way up to sterling silver. Sterling silver's a lot more expensive. Copper's inexpensive, and it does take practice to learn how to stamp. So you'll want to take some time doing it before you create pieces. And when you do want to go to sterling silver, we have a lot of great design blanks that you can choose from. But copper's the one to start out with. So when you start out stamping, when we got these stamps, they were not marked with which direction they should be pointing it before you strike them. So what I did was I went through and put actual letters on the stamps, and I know that when that letter is facing me, that means that that's the direction I want it to be in before I stamp, because it's really easy to get turned around with your stamp. So go ahead and mark them first if they don't have a mark. This is an Impress Art stamp that's clearly marked, and when you know that little figure right here is pointing in your direction, then you know that that's the direction you want the stamp to strike in. So what you'll want to do is you will want to bring your stamp and slide it down until the bottom of your stamp hits that tape. And that's your guide. Once it hits that tape, you can go ahead and strike with your hammer. And you want to strike hard, and you want to only strike once. Because if you double strike, your stamp can actually shift in between strikes, and you'll do a double strike on your piece and it will ruin it. So strike one good, hard, solid time. And another thing to watch out for is you need to make sure that your stamp is set. Sometimes it's easy to tilt a stamp to the left or right, and you want to make sure your stamp is straight up and down. So take a minute to make sure all of this is correct before you strike. And as you practice stamping, it will become so much easier. But when you just first start out, these are really good techniques. Okay, so now you can pull it off when you're done stamping. Pull the tape off, and it won't damage your metal or anything, so don't worry about it. There won't be sticky residue. And to leave a darken impression in your stamp, go ahead and you can use a permanent marker, or you can use enamel. This is an enamel liquid, and you just pour this into the impression you've made. And follow the rules on your of whatever type you use. But this one, you just leave it on there for about 10 seconds, enough time for it to set, and then you wipe it off. and the impression is left in there and it darkens up what you stamped. And I like using, I like darkening the impressions myself, but you can leave them plain. You don't have to have it dark at all. That's up to you. And that's how you hand stamp. Now we have a lot of stamping tips online, so if you go to halsteadbead.com and pull up Halstead articles, you'll see, just type in stamping in the search bar and you'll see some stamping articles come up. And that's a great way to learn also. We have tips on there and tricks on how to stamp, and we will talk to you later. Thanks for watching.